Support comes from Mainline Magazine, announcing its weekend-long independent music festival from September 11th to 13th. The independently curated 3-day event features 22 live acts performing in multiple venues spanning Little Five Points, Summerhill, and Decatur. Headliners include CDSM, Scatterbrain, Janie Danger, Mulus, Jonna Camille, Major, and more. Early tickets and more information are at mainlineatl.com/tickets.
Welcome to the ATL Arts Collective, powered by ArtsATL. I'm Kim Drobes, and this is your home for stories from Atlanta's art scene with reporting from ArtsATL writers, conversations with artists, and voices from across the creative community. Each week, I'll be joined by a rotating co-host, someone you may already know, or someone you're about to be very glad you met. And today's co-host, well, even if you don't know her face, you most certainly know her work. Beth McKibbin serves as both editor-in-chief and dining editor for Rough Draft Atlanta. She was previously the editor of Eater Atlanta and has covered food and drinks both locally and nationally for 15 years. Her work in local journalism truly makes her an Atlanta treasure, and I am so happy she's here with us today. Beth McKibbin, welcome to the ATL Arts Collective.
I'm happy to be here.
We're going to be getting to know Beth a little bit more in just a minute. And later, she's bringing us a story about the artistry behind restaurant plating.
Also coming up today, Kim talks with Ella Saurus Rex, the host of WigOut, a new wig stock style event coming to East Atlanta this weekend. Plus, we'll get an update on the Atlanta Opera's new home on the Beltline, which I'm personally very excited about. And we'll close the show this week with Best Bets from ArtsATL executive editor Shane Harrison.
But first, the director of the hit Broadway musical Rent and Grammy Award winner Gloria Estefan have come together for Basura, a new musical inspired by the true story of Paraguay's recycled orchestra. The production is on stage at the Alliance Theater through July 12th, and as ArtsATL editor-at-large Jim Farmer explains, this duo is just the start of the all-star creative team behind the new musical.
Joining forces for Basura are Grammy Award-winning artist Gloria Estefan and her daughter, Emily Estefan, collaborating on the music and lyrics, and legendary Broadway director Michael Greif, while Karen Zacharias is writing the book, and Tony Award winner Patricia Delgado is handling the choreography. I caught up with the Estefans, Greif, and Zacharias recently to talk about the world premiere, which tells the true story of Paraguay's recycled orchestra, whose members turned scrap into musical instruments and have become world famous. For Gloria Estefan, it's been a project she's been involved with for a while and is excited to tell the story.
In 2019, our producer Michael Schulman asked for a meeting in Miami. He flew down with an instrument that had been created by the orchestra, the recycled orchestra of Cateura, Paraguay. And he had asked me in advance to watch the Landfill Harmonic documentary. Okay. The president of my company, God rest his soul, Frank Amadeo, was so excited about the prospect of us writing a new original musical, because On Your Feet had been on Broadway, which was a jukebox about my husband's and my life and kind of the story of how we got started. And it ended at the American Music Awards after my accident when I got back on stage for the first time, because there was such an undertaking that was the story we were telling. Mm-hmm. Emily wasn't involved in the story because she hadn't been born in real life until 94.
How dare you?
Yes, but I asked her to write with me the one original tune in On Your Feet, which was called If I Never Got to Tell You. Okay. So when I spoke to Michael Schulman, he wanted me to write this musical. I loved the documentary. It was super inspiring. And I said yes, and I was all in. And then I went home and panicked because I'm thinking, okay, at least 25 songs because you end up throwing stuff out. And an inspiring work about a landfill. And this story, no matter how you put it, the landfill is a central character. And like I always tell my kids, you're not going to finish until you start. So that's what I did. I just started. And I asked Michael if I could have my daughter join me because I thought that she would be a great addition to this because she's an amazing musician. She plays everything. And I'm her biggest fan and secretly just wanted to spend more time with her. So I thought I'd lure her with this proposal.
Emily Estefan, an established musician in her own right, was also excited to join the team.
It was an incredible, not only opportunity, but incredible story, incredible team. We've had the privilege of not only learning about the fact that these are real people that we're speaking about, but collaborating in a musical way that not only honors the Paraguayan sound, which is so unique to what we know, because we're, Cuban American, and it's a very different sound. And being able to represent such a different kind of music and culture not only is an honor, but working together has been great. I feel like it has the best of both of our sounds. Not only, my mom's musical vocabulary, melodies and lyrics that may seem like deliciously comforting in a way, but also then pushing the boundaries when it comes to the authenticity of what the show is, and also like my rawness and my rhythms and my melodies and such. So I feel like we've really melded the best of both worlds.
Director Greif, who is used to mounting world premieres, knew he wanted to work on the project just after watching a documentary about the recycled orchestra.
I got a call when the Estefans and Karen Zacharias were already in place as book writer and composer to have a look at a documentary called Land Philharmonic to see if I would be interested in collaborating with them. And of course, from the go, I was like, I would love to get the opportunity to work with Gloria and Emily. I didn't know Karen. I started looking at some of Karen's plays. I immediately got a great impression of Karen through her work. And I met the producers, who were the people who introduced me to the project. And for me, it's an honor to actually be invited. I've gotten a lot of jobs through interviews, even as recently as 5 years ago, I came in for an interview. I got the job. This was really nice to sort of know that the gig was mine. And I had already familiarized myself with the documentary. And I thought, some stories are made to be musicalized, and some stories, this kind of story about the human spirit and about beating all the odds and giving a bunch of kids a new lease on life, just seemed like exactly the kind of material that's wonderful for a musical and also wonderful for these composers to handle. So it was sort of a no-brainer. I was really excited. Then we got to work in Miami. That was really lovely too.
According to Karen Zacharias, the orchestra was formed in 2012 by Fabio Chavez, an engineer and a former environmental technician who stumbled onto the idea to make a violin out of tin sound like a real violin.
There was a young man who loved playing music, who was doing a job that he felt he was failing at with environmental concerns at the landfill, and he started playing his violin, and he got the idea that what if I taught music classes for free? Who will show up? What could happen? And that became the spark that kind of started this immense story that had a ripple effect and has changed over time to become, kind of developed from a cocoon into a butterfly in a sense.
The children, however, are dealing with incredible economic hardships.
These are children who live by a mountain of trash. It's an incredibly poor situation, but they are also incredibly resilient. Many of them have moved from different parts of the country, and some of them go to school, some of them have to work. But it's exactly what you might think, of living in a situation with poverty. At the same time, they have strong family structures. They go to school. They feel a sense of community and pride of where they're from. So in many ways, I think a lot of people are going to relate to these kids, even though they live in circumstances that are very different from what many of us live in.
According to Gloria Estefan, the children also face environmental challenges.
There's ash storms from fires that are deliberately set to clear lands in Argentina that come and cover their entire area with ash. There's, the landfill seeps toxic waste, which could eventually poison the largest reserve of fresh water that sits right under that landfill. Yet despite all these things, they stay with each other. They stay with the community. They help each other. They're a force. And these kids, as they've become an amazing success throughout the world, they just spent 3 months in Europe touring. They go back to their place and make it better. The school at this point has been built. They teach over 300 students, and they really have elevated the area and given it an amazing name to be proud of.
This is Gloria Estefan's first musical after the success of her own very personal On Your Feet. But crafting music for a different subject proved to be different.
It's a challenge, but what I have found that's very different from the songwriting that I've done previously, because I write whatever I want and inspired by whatever I feel at the moment. And that doesn't go away. It still has to come from a very real place. I don't think you can write about what you don't know to some degree, emotionally or whatever. So I've had a lifetime to really acquire a lot of emotional language, but you're writing for characters. You're writing for people. You're writing a story. You're advancing the story. You have to combine the artistry of songwriting with storytelling, which, sometimes, especially in pop music, is rare. We had it a lot in the folk songs. In the 60s, they told stories like One Tin Soldier, or even a story about a cannibal with Timothy. Like, there was interesting things back in the 60s. But at this point, music has, gone in a million directions. So it's really, to me, the biggest challenge was having to let go of stuff. When the character changes or the story changes, to give stuff up that you are emotionally invested in. And as that's happened, it's actually been very freeing, honestly. And you're in that mindset.
Zacharias has lived in Atlanta twice before now.
My father is a physician, and he first worked at Grady Memorial Hospital as a Mexican physician back in the 70s when they needed doctors from all over the world to come. And then we returned many years later, and I went to Henderson High School. And so I'm a product of Atlanta Public School. Okay. And I'm so proud of it. It was some of the best years of our life. And I still have a lot of friends here in the community. But he was working for the Centers of Disease Control. So coming back for me, listen, I was in my room listening to Gloria Estefan during that time when Mi Tierra came out, and I was dancing for me to be back in my hometown, working with these two amazing women who represent, the whole breadth of Latino music and culture is a dream come true.
The Estefans have spent time here as well and lobbied to bring the production back to Atlanta.
For us, we have a previous Atlanta connection because I actually spent 2 months here shooting Father of the Bride. And at the time, we were still in the COVID era, so we were kind of a bubble. But we would walk the Beltline, and I fell in love with Atlanta. So when we had so many different people vying for the show, I was rooting for Atlanta the whole time because I wanted to come back here and spend more time. And we will be here 2 months.
For the ATL Arts Collective and ArtsATL, I'm Jim Farmer.
You can read Jim's full story at artsatl.org. Okay, it's time for you to get to know Beth a little better. You may remember her from her Beverage Beats segment on the City Lights Collective. And as I mentioned in her intro, Beth has been covering food and drinks for over 15 years. Beth, how did you originally get into journalism, and what drove you there?
Well, I've always been fascinated by food and the people behind it and the farmers and the science. I'm just a big nerd in general. So I've been writing and editing professionally for about 30 years. And really began freelancing full-time about 15 years ago. Food was a natural fit for me. And so I was given the opportunity to work with publications like the AJC during those early years. At the AJC, I became their first cocktail columnist. They had not had one before. And it just kind of sprouted from there. So I just kind of freelanced for various publications, both locally, regionally, and nationally, mostly focused on the drinks side of the industry. And then in 2017, I got the job at Eater, and I remained its editor and reporter until about 2024. And then I moved over to Rough Draft as their senior dining editor. So it's been kind of a circuitous route to there. But then last year, I added editor-in-chief to my job title. So, why not?
Let's talk about that for a second. It's amazing to me, and congratulations. I love that you have this position, but it does seem unique that an editor-in-chief would also have a major beat for a publication. Am I missing something? Is this more common than I think?
It definitely is way uncommon, for those of us that started out in the industry 20 or 30 years ago. But I think it's probably less uncommon nowadays, just with the state of the industry right now.
Right. Well, I do love that you were able to keep food journalism and cocktail coverage close to your heart. And if I could just brag on you and your Rough Draft colleagues for a moment, I know that each year Rough Draft partners with second semester journalism classes. You coach students in all things reporting. And this year, you worked with SCAD students, I believe. Would you share a bit about that mentoring experience and what the students covered?
Sure. We actually have 11 students this year from SCAD that myself, Colin Kelly, the executive editor, and Sammy Purcell, who is our associate editor and also our film and television critic, we coach students with Professor Paige Gray's journalism class on reporting and how to conduct interviews, the ins and outs of being a reporter. So each of them has to report on two stories. One is very news driven, very straightforward reporting, and the other tends to be more feature driven. And they have a theme that they have to follow every year. Last year, it was food, which was great for me. This year, it's great for Sammy because they're talking about film and television. And this is a subject matter that the SCAD students know very well. So my three students wrote stories that ranged from interviewing cosplayers at Renfest, a really lovely essay on the state of theaters and a traditional movie-going experience. And then another student wrote a really amazing news story on how the changes in the student visa program are hampering foreign exchange students at SCAD as they pursue their film careers and also try to finish their degrees. It's been really a tremendously difficult process for those students. So all of these stories that these students work on with us over the semester, they get published online at Rough Draft, and a few of them are selected for our print edition of In Town. It's always fun because they come in with an expectation of what reporting is really like and leave with a very different outlook because they now understand how hard it is. Yeah, it's hard, guys. I mean, there's a lot that goes into it. So, it's really fun. So look for those stories to go live in the next, I think they're starting to go live next week online on Rough Draft.
Fabulous. Yes, I will keep my eyes open for those stories. And speaking of stories, Beth brought a piece with her about the art of plating food. Can you tell me why this was the story you wanted to tell?
I know we all take pictures of pretty food. I mean, that's just kind of how we roll nowadays with social media. But I have always been awestruck by people who can create art with their hands. And I'm not skilled in that capacity in any way, shape, or form. I am not good at painting. I am not great at drawing. I cannot sculpt. I would probably cut a finger off if I tried woodworking. I mean, it's bad, guys. But I really admire people who do. And I think what we kind of take for granted, especially these days, is how beautiful presentation is on a plate when you receive that in front of you at a restaurant. That is actually a completely on purpose situation that's happening. Chefs are taught plating and styling at culinary school. Because, we've all heard the phrase, you eat with your eyes first. And it is an absolute in restaurants that if you do not grab the diner at first sight, you're going to lose them at first bite. I mean, it's just an absolute. So I talked with a couple of chefs that are known for kind of putting out beautiful plates. So it was pretty cool.
Well, we're looking forward to hearing the piece, but first, it is time to tease your hair to the heavens because this Saturday, WigOut comes to the East Atlanta Community Garden. The event will be a day full of fun, pride, drag, and special guests, including the legendary Lady Bunny, founder of the original Wigstock. Joining us now is event host and Atlanta drag superstar Saurus Rex, alongside a driving force behind the party and professional wig wrangler, Tony DeCaro. Hi, Ella and Tony.
Hello, how are you doing?
Hi, Kim.
So, WigOut is back, and I noticed that the theme this year is country with a K. What inspired the country twist for 2026, and how are you hoping the Atlanta community interprets country wig pride?
Well, I think we're definitely doubling down on the fact that we are Southern. We have Southern pride. We have Southern queer, and we're just trying to inject some Southern queer joy into the national or international Pride Month. So I believe that's what we're doing.
Well, Ella, as the host, you have a monumental task of keeping the energy up, the hair high, and the crowd entertained for about 6 straight hours. What is your secret weapon for hosting an outdoor daytime drag festival? And can you give us a little tease of what your look might entail?
Well, I'm definitely doing a lot of wig changes.
Mm.
It's going to be hot. It's going to be sweaty, but that's part of the fun of it. It's a different sort of experience than going to the theater or going to a bar. But literally, it's just about the fun. It's about being outside. It's about being with community and in community. It's our own little East Atlanta Village pride. And so we're going to drink water. We might have maybe some adult libations as well. And just have fun. It's more of a communal experience, less of a try to look our best, because we know we live in Georgia. The heat is hot, but also who doesn't want to have fun and put a wig on and frolic around with our friends? So
I'm into it. I get it. Well, Tony, as one of the driving forces behind the event, you've pulled together a great lineup, including a special guest performance from the iconic Lady Bunny. Would you talk a little bit about Lady Bunny and Lady Bunny's connection to Atlanta?
Oh, that's a great question. So, Lady Bunny hails from Chattanooga, but spent many years in the drag scene in Atlanta before moving to New York. So, she definitely is well known in the Atlanta scene. There's always a lot of overlap between New York and Atlanta. So, in the beginning, she started Wigstock, which was a play on Woodstock, and they did that in New York for many years through the 80s and the 90s. And then Atlanta also had its own version, which was Wigwood. Wigwood was a play on the Dogwood Festival. And as a young gay, I went to that, and I found it very inspiring. Now, Lady Bunny had been performing at that once in a while, not every year. And so we were put in contact with Lady Bunny, and she jumped right on it because this is part of her legacy, bringing the queer community together, celebrating wigs, and just having a good time with it. And we're very happy to have her. It's not often that you can get somebody that is that well known to come do such a small grassroots event, but she jumped right on it, and we're happy to have her.
So, what does it take to bring an event of this scale? And what are you personally most excited for people to experience?
Well, I think it takes a group of people that just want to make this happen. I brought this up to my good friend Ben, who's one of the owners of Mary's and the bar in East Atlanta. And we had organized this several years before in 2010 and 2011 as a fundraiser. And I brought it back up because we were frustrated with what was happening with the administration and the constant oppression of not just queer people, but lots of people. And so this was a way to fight back and give some energy, to raise some money to support people. But everybody jumped right on board to help. So what it takes is a lot of people that
are just dedicated to helping other people. One thing I am most excited about is just the amount of people that have shown up to support this cause and willing to give their time and their money and their focus on this. We think it's very important. So it's nice to have people just jump on board and feel the same level of importance.
I love that. And I feel like I've been hearing a theme a lot in the last couple of years of joy being a form of resistance. And it sounds like you guys are thoroughly embracing that. Can we talk a little bit about the organizations that this will benefit?
Yes, absolutely. So we have three main beneficiaries that we're supporting this year, which do rotate every year. This year, we have SNAP for Freedom, which SNAP stands for Solutions Not Punishment. It's an organization that advocates for the rights of Black and trans and queer folks. We have the Georgia Latino Alliance for Human Rights. It's a community-based organization that educates and advocates for Latino immigrant rights. And we have Brave Trails, which is very close to all of our hearts because it is an LGBTQ plus youth camp that creates a safe space for queer kids and gives them opportunity to enjoy all the fun of a traditional summer camp experience that a lot of us would not have done or wouldn't have been able to be comfortable at. I know personally, I never would have gone to a summer camp as a child because that would have been terrifying.
Yeah, queer or not, summer camp was not a welcoming space for everyone. It's just the way it is. Ella, so the event is Rain or Shine, and the invitation says bring your best or worst wig. For anyone listening who's on the fence about what to wear, what is your number one piece of advice for thriving and surviving at WigOut?
Thriving and surviving, like I said before, I think definitely drinking a lot of water. Also, the wig doesn't have to stay on your head the whole time. I'm sure there will definitely be people taking respite, taking the wigs on and off. But, it's just a fun thing that's going to help us to create community, like taking pictures and having a sense of memory and a place. And also there's so many styles of wigs. There's human hair wigs, there's synthetic hair wigs, there's foam wigs. You can basically make a wig out of anything. A little makeup goes a long way as well. Glitter is great. It comes right off. We're expecting drag of all sorts and levels. And we also don't want the wigs to deter anyone from coming. We'll have some wigs there if you don't have them. We'll have some shiny things there.
Some communal wigs.
Them. Yeah. So don't let that be a deterrent. The most important thing is that we're raising money for these organizations and that, like you were saying before, we are using Queer Joy as an act of resistance and as a way of helping to, build and support our community. We do not exist in a monolith. We exist with each other and we all have to help each other out. And part of that is if you are able to give, whether it's through physical money, whether it's through volunteering, whether it's through just sharing a post, anything is really helpful.
What a great way to start out Pride Month. WigOut is this Saturday, June 6th from 1 p.m. to 7 p.m. in the East Atlanta Community Garden. And you can learn more about the event as well as follow links to get tickets via their Instagram page. They are at WigOut ATL. Ella and Tony, thank you so much for talking with us. We really do eat first with our eyes, and nowadays our phone cameras are next in line. Here now to share how and why top Atlanta chefs turn a simple dinner plate into an artistic canvas is our co-host for the day, Beth McKibben.
Thanks, Kim. There's nothing random about the presentation of a plate of food at a restaurant, especially at a finer dining establishment. The arrangement of ingredients on the plate, the color scheme, textures, layers, and height, even techniques used to compile a plate of food are all deliberate choices by the chef. A medallion of filet mignon that's garnished with a fresh salad of micro herbs cushioned on a pillow of creamy potato puree, set off with a flourish by crispy tuiles of blanched greens, that's by design. The brushstroke of ruby red raspberry sauce streaking across a stark white plate beside a French silk brownie, or edible flowers carefully plucked with tweezers from a container to form a delicate bouquet atop creme brulee, have a purpose. Color choice, the interplay of light and dark, creating depth and height. The total composition of a plate served to you at a restaurant is meant to capture your attention. After all, wasn't it the 1st century Roman epicure Apicius who said, "We eat first with our eyes"? And in recent years, that now includes the cameras on our phones. Chefs have always played up the sensual nature of foods through plating, creating edible masterpieces on fragile canvases of bone china, weathered wood, artisan ceramic, simple stoneware, or even pastel-hued Depression-era glass. In fact, the techniques for styling and plating food are part of the curriculum at most culinary schools. For budding chefs, acing food presentation is just as important as mastering menu planning, learning to make the 5 mother sauces, or honing your knife skills. The visual appeal of food sets expectations. Lose a diner at first sight, and you're likely going to lose them before first bite. Demetrius Brown, chef and owner of Bread and Butterfly in Inman Park and upcoming restaurant Heritage in Summerhill, says social media has only upped the ante for chefs when it comes to food presentation. A stunning photo taken of a colorful salad filled with the bounty of the season becomes a calling card for a restaurant online, racking up reservations by people who want to get up close and personal with the salad that stopped them mid-scroll on Instagram.
In the day and age we live in now, social media is everybody's best friend. So the more people you have taking pictures of your food, and the more visually striking it is, hopefully the more attention it'll bring to your restaurant, more revenue, and all those kind of things. And I think it's also people eat with their eyes first. A lot of the times, the first perception that somebody has of you and your food is something that they've seen online, or when they sit down for the very first time and see somebody else's dish next to them or their own dish.
Building a simple plate of food is based on the rule of 3. It's the same principle used by artists and architects, meant to create balance and symmetry and not overwhelm the eye. Classic plating is neat and tidy, with a protein, vegetable, and starch usually arranged in a clockwise fashion. Chefs often use this basic plating principle as a starting point for styling, which can range from adding swooshes, splatters, and dots of sauces and purees for visual interest to forming geometric shapes on a plate out of vegetables to create structure. When it comes to plating, Chef Carl Gorline, the owner of Avize on Atlanta's West Side, takes a slightly unique approach to the rule of 3.
The approach to, the visibility of the dish is, directly linked to the execution of it. I have this kind of quirky obsession with having a unique piece of china for all the dishes, so they kind of have their own space, to be distinguished on their own. And for us, it's all ingredient driven too. So, you start with the inspiration being seasonality, produce. You find typically we work in this like sets of 3s, our process at least. And some others I've talked to over the years kind of have 3 elements and then 3 iterations of each one of those elements. And then also a little superstition, we work in odd numbers only.
But even after 2 decades in restaurants, Gorline says his plating style is still a work in progress, constantly evolving as he learns and grows as a chef. Sometimes his approach to plating leans organic and minimalist, showcasing ingredients as naturally as possible on the plate. Other times, Gorline plates in full-on maximalist mode, with heavy garnishing to create an awe-inspiring moment that prompts his guests to ask questions. The latter approach to styling a plate allows Gorline and his staff to talk about the farmers they regularly source from, as well as specific ingredients, like the lamb saddles he just received from a farm in upstate Pennsylvania. For Gorline, plating inspiration can come from just about anything, including mundane objects like a paver stone. He once based the design for a radish tartlet on a lightning storm he witnessed from the front steps of his house.
I was trying to photograph this like lightning storm. It was a thunderstorm outside, and I caught a lightning bolt. And then the next day, I was shaving these radishes, and they had these like striations in them. And I made a dish like that was inspired by the photo of that lightning bolt. And it ended up being, I think it was a little tartlet that had like radishes and muscadines like layered. So it had this very like noir purple, like it was. Every once in a while we'll do that, and that's fun. Like that's kind of like the playing with food aspect. My mom used to tell me when I was a kid, quit playing with my food, and I joke around with her now. It's a good thing I didn't listen to you, because I have a career because of it.
Creating visual appeal on a plate, however, requires the right tools. A chef might create shape and structure on a plate with molds or stacking rings to draw the diner's eye and zero in on various components of a dish. Swooshing, dotting, brushing sauces and purees across the plate creates visual interest, while also controlling how much of an ingredient a chef uses. Hard, soft, smooth, crunchy ingredients like tuile, a jumble of fresh greens, slivers of fruit, a sprinkle of seeds, and drizzles of cream provide layers of texture, both visually and via mouthfeel. Brown, who describes his plating style as eclectic, leans toward having a lot of negative space on the plate. But despite not wanting to overcrowd his plates with ingredients, he does tend to load up on fresh ingredients like herbs.
We did a tasso for Heritage Supper Club that eventually made it onto the menu at Bread and Butterfly. And it was essentially plated in kind of like a 3-compartment plate. And that was kind of to be reminiscent of, getting your food in a styrofoam container when you go to a Haitian restaurant. So, we built we skewered the tasso, so it's like nice uniform squares, brushed it, relentlessly with epis. So that's another, fresh component. And then, in the other compartments, we plated, a little bit of fresh plantains and then a little bit of picles to add a little bit of acidity to the dish also. And then another dish that we do all the time for Heritage is called, we call it the bonbon. So each part of that bonbon is reminiscent of how I feel about myself. So in the very center, you have a sweet jam. It's like the sweetness that I carry throughout life. And then it has a peanut nougat, which is to remind myself to stay grounded. It's also called ground nuts in Africa. And then it's all encapsulated by a very hard shell of tempered Haitian chocolate. So that's the hard shell that I put on as a persona, even though I'm, this nice guy inside. And then it's all dusted with a little bit of Scotch bonnet powder. And that's the fire and fervor that I have to, be as successful as I can. And that bonbon is plated on a broken plate. So the story behind that is I received a bunch of broken plates in the mail one day, and I sat on my kitchen floor trying to piece them back together. And it was very similar and very reminiscent to me trying to piece together, the traditions, the recipes, and the people of the African diaspora through my food. So during that process, I decided to file down all the sharp edges as a reminder that no matter how many pieces we find, there will always be a shard of that plate that's missing, just like there'll always be a piece of the story that I'm trying to tell missing, just due to history.
Brown uses tools like tweezers or chopsticks for handling delicate ingredients such as herbs, flowers, and greens. A spoon with a bowl that comes to a sharp point offers precision pours and is always on hand in Brown's kitchen for plating creams and sauces. You'll find Goreline putting the final touches on a plate with his coveted Japanese knife or a mandolin. Molds and molding rings, along with squirt bottles and piping bags, are in heavy rotation for plating dishes at Avize. For Brown, once he's chosen the main components of a dish, he immediately begins to think about how he will present those ingredients to his restaurant guests.
When I first think of a menu, the first thing that comes to mind, of course, is, the protein or the main component. But right after that, I'm thinking, how is it going to look? From the colors, the spacing of ingredients, from the texture of ingredients, and all that, culminates into the final product. And if it wasn't art, we would just throw all the food on the plate. But I think approaching it from an artistic mindset makes the food, in theory, taste better. You get different types of, as you eat the food, you get different experiences, whether it's layered, whether it's, spread out, or whether it's all packed together. The purpose is to make sure the guest has, multiple moments of crunch, softness, chewiness, and so on and so forth during their eating experience. And that's, comes down to plating it in an artistic manner.
For Goreline, being inspired by ingredients and letting those ingredients direct the vision for the final product informs how he plates each dish at Avize.
Even though a lot of these plates are heavily garnished, we don't put anything on the plate you can't eat, for starters, but some stuff is best left to almost a naked presentation. Like our duck dish that we have now, we're doing like a chou farci, like a little stuffed cabbage that has duck hearts and livers and roasted duck leg emulsified with foie gras and jasmine rice and pickled sultanas stuffed into the cabbage. And we're kind of playing with this like citrus, bigarade, Szechuan peppercorn jus, and some just really nice sprouting cauliflower. And like that dish is like, do everything as clean and swift as possible, and then just put it on the plate and leave it alone. It gives the ingredients room to speak. That's leaning a little bit into that kind of new Nordic minimalist. Things have their space on the plate, but the execution is the highest value there.
Thank you, Beth. That was lovely. Okay, in just a moment, we're going to get an update on the Atlanta Opera's new home. And then ArtsATL Executive Editor Shane Harrison joins us with his top picks for the weekend. Back in a minute.
Support comes from Motherlode. Recently featured in Vogue magazine as one of the top vintage spots in Atlanta, this 10,000 square foot space features over 60 local curators and artisans who offer a variety of items from designer to kitsch and from antiques to modern. Located on Covington Highway in Avondale Estates, the store is open daily from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. Browse, shop, attend an event, or wander around and get inspired. Learn more on Instagram at MotherlodeATL.
Welcome back to the ATL Arts Collective. I'm Kim Drobes, here with our special guest co-host, Beth McKibben. Hi, Beth.
Hi, Kim. Now, let's check in on the enormous $43 million multidisciplinary facility that's been constructed adjacent to the Atlanta Beltline in Buckhead. ArtsATL reporter Doug Deloach brings us this update on the Molly Blanc Center for Opera and the Arts.
Not unlike a certain intrepid group of popular fictional space travelers, for the past 13 or so years, the Atlanta Opera has been on a mission to explore strange new worlds, to expand the audience for an art form hidebound by historical convention, and to boldly go where no earthly opera company has gone before.
The mission of the opera is to break the boundaries of opera and to provide exceptional performances for audiences everywhere.
That's Tomer Zvulun, who became general and artistic director of the Atlanta Opera in 2013. Since then, the opera has evolved from a struggling institution with a supportive but insufficiently philanthropic audience into an internationally renowned enterprise, lauded for its innovative productions, creative programming, and robust multimedia infrastructure. Prior to the opening of the 2024-25 season, Opera America deemed the Atlanta Opera one of the top 10 companies in the U.S., based on reaching the $15 million operational budget threshold established by the industry's National Service Organization. In the fall of 2024, Zvulun announced the next major mission for the starship under his command, a $110 million fundraising campaign, including funds to build a $43 million multidisciplinary facility on a 6-acre parcel of land adjacent to the Atlanta Beltline in Buckhead. The 56,000 square foot campus complex encompasses the historic Bobby Jones Golf Course Clubhouse. It will include production and administrative offices, a black box theater, educational classrooms, and an outdoor green space, which holds the potential for hosting special events. The Arthur M. Blank Family Foundation donated $27.5 million to the fundraising campaign. In return, the co-founder of the Home Depot and owner of the Atlanta Falcons named the opera's new project after his mother, Molly Blank, a dancer and sculptor who loved music, theater, and opera. In February, construction of the Molly Blank Center for Opera and the Arts began in earnest, with completion slated for the fall of 2027. Even when the facility is completed, the Atlanta Opera's main stage productions will continue to be held at Cobb Energy Performing Arts Center.
We fell in love with this venue because it's nestled in nature in a way that showcases the best of Atlanta. Atlanta is a city in a forest, and this new center is a center in a forest. And we're strong believers of the alchemy and the synergy that happens between art, music on one hand, and nature on the other hand. When you connect the two of them, you have a concoction that is so powerful.
The city-owned Bobby Jones Golf Course was built in 1932. The formal clubhouse was completed in 1941 under the auspices of the Works Progress Administration. In 1951, a foursome of African Americans, including Alfred Tupp Holmes, a talented amateur who won collegiate titles while attending Tuskegee University, were prevented from teeing off at the course based on a municipal code banning black citizens from playing on publicly funded golf courses. The men brought a federal lawsuit challenging the ban, which resulted in a 1955 Supreme Court ruling in Holmes versus City of Atlanta that outlawed segregation of public recreational facilities.
The Bobby Jones Clubhouse was built in the 1940s, and it represents a very important piece of what is American and Atlanta history.
The Molly Blank site sits mostly within the Peachtree Creek 100-year floodplain. From the beginning, the Atlanta Opera has been consulting with city government and professional recreational planning, design, and conservancy organizations to address the environmental impact of the construction of the Molly Blank Center and the long-term health of the floodplain ecosystem. Primary concerns include stormwater management, erosion mitigation, creek rehabilitation, tree canopy restoration, and structural impact. When completed, the site will be contoured based on the natural landscape in a way that works in cohesion with Peachtree Creek and addresses neighborhood concerns about conditions on FEMA-managed lots and the Northwest Beltline Connector Trail. The person most responsible for the practical development of the Molly Blank Center is Atlanta Opera Managing Director Micah Fortson.
When this place came to the fore as an opportunity, what stood out to us was not only was it a place where we could connect with the community, it's on the Beltline Connector Trail, but it was also a place where we could lean into the history of the building, we could lean into the art, and we could lean into the nature, all in one place kind of centered around community.
Plans call for the construction of bioretention ponds, or vaults, which will slow down the flow of water into Peachtree Creek during storms. The vault concept could also allow for the development of small wetland areas to help combat erosion. Dealing with the flora, particularly the originally planted trees, prevents a different challenge.
Back when they were planted about 80 years ago, they were really the best type of tree to use in the space. There wasn't a lot of knowledge around the diversity of tree species that could be planted in a floodplain, and so they picked a lot of water oaks. They planted some, they put them in there, they grew up real big. These are short-lived but fast-growing trees. So they grow up real big, real fast, but they don't live long. And so the U.S. Forestry Service says that their lifespan is about 30 to 50 years.
The original water oaks planted on the Molly Blank Center site are about 80 years old. In the last 2 years, 5 have fallen down on the property, raising safety concerns.
So we had arborists come out and evaluate all of the trees and determine which ones would survive over the course of construction and which ones were just completely unsafe and needed to be removed.
Because the site is a former golf course, the trees left standing are essentially the only trees in the area. The solution developed by Fortson and his team of arborists and land planners involves creating a succession plan. The plan begins by planting native species that provide a measure of canopy diversity, followed every few years with other plantings.
We worked with arborists and our land planners to create kind of this succession plan for once the site is developed, it'll have more trees on it than there were before, starting out with kind of a phase 1 layer of trees that have a certain diversity of native species, a little bit of canopy diversity, but then as we go along, every 3 to 5 years doing other plantings, working with Atlanta Memorial Park Conservancy, Trees Atlanta, and the neighborhood PBA to do like volunteer plantings that are oversaw by a certified arborist following an arborist plan that determines where trees can get planted, different species of trees, different ages of trees, so that as they grow and over the course of years, you have these multi-generational tree successions coming up.
Atlanta-based architecture firm Post Loyal is lead designer of the Molly Blank Center for Opera and the Arts, with theater projects and acoustics responsible for the recital hall. The exterior of the Bobby Jones Clubhouse will be restored and blended within the facility, which incorporates a lot of open spaces and glass walls. The campus is designed to encourage pedestrian and alternative transit access, with vehicle parking limited to around 120 spaces. The Molly Blank Center will house two modest performance venues, Rosemary Hall, a 200-seat recital hall, and the Atlanta Opera Coca-Cola Theater, a 200-seat immersive theater, which will serve as the opera company rehearsal space. Both will be used to present smaller format programs, including operettas, musicals, plays, voice recitals, chamber groups, jazz ensembles, lectures, and films. The outdoor grounds may also provide an opportunity to present special programming. With completion of the Molly Blank Center for Opera and the Arts anticipated in the fall of 2027, Zvulun sounded an optimistic yet cautionary note, indicating that the first public events may not occur until 2028.
We are keeping two things as our North Star focus. Number one is quality. We don't want to do too many things so that the quality of what you see at the opera, that you come to expect at the opera, is maintained. And number two, that there's a thoughtful cadence of events that is in harmony with the neighborhood so that folks are happy with what is happening there.
And so begins another chapter in the voyages of the Atlanta Opera and the Molly Blank Center for Opera and the Arts. For the ATL Arts Collective, I'm Doug Deloach.
You can read Doug's full story on artsatl.org.
It's time now for ArtsATL's Best Bets with executive editor Shane Harrison. This week, his mix includes multiple new theater productions, the Atlanta Symphony Orchestra's season closing concert, and comedian John Crist's return home to Georgia.
Summer was once a dead zone for local theater, but like the school year, it's been working its way into the hottest months. In the next week, there are at least 4 new productions hitting Atlanta stages. In spite of my ambivalence, a world premiere from Chicago-based playwright Catherine Yu will take the stage June 5th through June 28th at Synchronicity Theater. Exploring the complexity of trauma through the lens of 5 individuals, the play's intriguing overview drops hints at PTSD, mental health, dance, and human connection without elaborating much on a plot. Written by Atlanta native Lauren Gunderson, The Revolutionists portrays the French Revolution through the lens of girl-powered comedy at Theatrical Outfit June 3rd through June 28th. True Colors Theater Company will present Rodgers and Hammerstein's Cinderella, based on the teleplay by Robert L. Friedman at the Southwest Arts Center from June 9th through July 5th. Known as the Enchanted Edition, this contemporary take on the tale keeps the heart of the classic story while turning up the confidence. This Cinderella isn't waiting to be rescued. Pulitzer Prize winner Wit, staged at Actors Express June 4th through June 28th and directed by Freddie Ashley, follows the story of a woman who was out of touch with her emotions until a transformative diagnosis. You can learn more on the June 17th episode of the ATL Arts Collective podcast, where contributor Lois Reitzes will speak with Wit's director Freddie Ashley. A beloved cult classic film screens on June 6th and June 9th at Landmark Midtown Arts Cinema. Confident and opinionated, 17-year-old Megan is far too strong-willed for her unsupportive parents, who begin to worry she is a lesbian in But I'm a Cheerleader. Natasha Lyonne, Clea Duvall, and RuPaul Charles star in this campy satire from 1999. The Atlanta Contemporary Music Collective's Outside the Lines spotlights 2 works for open ensemble that explore the space outside of the traditional rhythmic grid by Julius Eastman and Orrin Murphy. They'll perform at Lost Druid Brewery in Avondale Estates on June 6th. Music director Natalie Stutzman closes the Atlanta Symphony Orchestra's season with one of orchestral music's best-loved works. Gustav Mahler's monumental Symphony No. 2, The Resurrection, probes themes of life and death and the struggle to find meaning. Performances are on June 4th, June 6th, and June 7th. It's a big weekend for comedy, too, including a homecoming for a rising star. John Crist is one of today's fastest rising stand-up comedians, with sold-out shows from coast to coast that have landed him at number 34 on the most recent Pollstar list of the top 100 comedy tours. His latest special, John Crist Emotional Support, was filmed less than 6 miles from his childhood home in Lilburn, and he'll be returning to that venue, Gas South Arena, on June 6th. Morgan J is a musician and comedian based in Los Angeles who has made appearances on MTV's Wild 'N Out and was a 2023 Just for Laughs new face. He'll perform at the Fox Theater on June 5th. Burt Kreischer's career has evolved from being Rolling Stone's 1997 #1 partier in the nation to one of the top-grossing stand-up comics in the business. In 2022, Pollstar listed him at number 4 in the top-grossing comedy tours. Catch him on June 5th at the Gas South Arena. For the ATL Arts Collective and ArtsATL, I'm Shane Harrison.
Shane curates an even longer list each week, and you can find all of his picks at artsatl.org. I am sad to say we have reached the end of the show, but before we go, I want to give a big thank you to you, Beth, the co-host for today. Beth McKibbin, it has been such a joy.
Oh, it's always a pleasure hanging out with you, Kim.
Thanks again, Beth. And thank you for listening to the ATL Arts Collective. You can join us on social at Arts Atlanta as well as at ATL Arts Collective. You can find pictures and links related to today's show at atlartscollective.com. And while you're there, consider buying the podcast a cup of coffee via our Patreon page. Your donation helps cover production costs, research, reporting, and of course, coffee. Stay with us. I'll be right back with a look at what's coming up next week.
Support comes from Soul Food Cypher, a community-driven freestyle rap experience and educational platform. Visit soulfoodcypher.com to learn about their live ciphers, workshops, and performances across Atlanta and beyond. Join the movement and step into the circle.
Welcome back. While you're listening right now, please subscribe, rate, and review. It really helps other people find the show. Our theme music is K. Michelle Dubois' Hit the Deck from her album Astral Heart, courtesy of Wicked Superb Records. Next week on the show, Sundiata Rush joins us as co-host for a special World Cup episode. The massive event has new murals and art installations popping up all over the city, and we'll catch up with some of the artists who are making it happen. The ATL Arts Collective is part of the Wordplay Collective podcast family. Check out our sister show, In Pieces with Our Land, for conversations with the artist Our Land. Thanks again for listening. I'm Kim Drobes, and this is the ATL Arts Collective.